Being fat is a choice, and that's why it makes me so angry when I see articles like that of Southwest Airlines giving away a free seat to people who cannot fit in a single seat because they're overweight. It's completely a choice, and the sooner you accept that and the sooner you're willing to do something about it, the better your life is going to be. It's that simple. The reason it makes me angry is not because we've all been in a queue for a gate in an airport, and they're asking you to take out 1 kilogram, 2 kilograms, change it, put it into your check bag, put it in your pocket, etc., in order to get on the flight because they're worried about your carry-on luggage. Then you look at the guy behind and he's 4 times your body weight and you kind of like baffled. It's not for that reason that it makes me angry. Children are watching these situations. They're seeing big people get on flights and get a second seat because they're not able to have enough self-control in order to fit into one seat. It's children that we should be worried about. And in the US, they're normalizing being overweight, being obese, and saying it's okay, we have empathy for you. Now, let me extend an olive branch here, because the way I look at this is very, very simple. Addiction is a choice, and I'll get onto that in a second. But when I'm going to a race, I'm racing a marathon or racing a 5K or whatever, it's inspiring to see Eliud Kipchoge break the world record and finish first. It's really inspiring. Take a lot from that. But what's infinitely more inspiring is going to a 5K and watching a girl who's 40 kilograms overweight, 80 pounds overweight. She's running 40 minutes for 5K and she's struggling to move every single step. She's carrying all that extra weight. She's in an uncomfortable situation, but she's there. She's got a hat in the ring. She's got up on a Saturday morning at 6 o'clock in order to get to that 5K, and she's made the change in her life to say, this is going to be the new me now. I'm going to lose these pounds and I'm going to get fit, and this is what it looks like. She's probably uncomfortable in front of everybody else and she's probably last in the race, but she's there. And that is infinitely more inspiring because it doesn't come naturally to her, and she's putting in way more effort and way more exertion than the guy who's kind of easily finishing first, and it's very kind of a simple sort of training run for him. Yeah, it's super, super inspiring. So when I see articles like that, and it's kind of like what children are seeing, the kind of choice of addiction comes up. And let me just prove to you why addiction is a choice. And it is offensive. It's offensive because you might be sat there, you might be overweight, and you might be insecure about that weight. You might have somebody, a loved one, who's overweight and she's struggling or he's struggling, and you know what that feels like to love that person and they're overweight. You might have somebody in your family who's overweight and you know how they're suffering and they're struggling to get through it. I get it completely. My cat is going wild. There was a really fascinating study in the Vietnamese War about addiction, and food. Being overweight, being fat is an addiction to food. End of story. It's simple as that. Same as addiction to alcohol, addiction to drugs, addiction to sex, whatever it is you're addicted to, it is addiction, and it can be solved. Now, this study in 1971 in the Vietnamese War, guys from America went over to see what was going on with American troops, and they found out that 35% of them had tried heroin, because there was obviously heroin everywhere in Vietnam and in Southeast Asia. 20% of them were addicted to heroin. That's 150,000 troops in Vietnam at that time. 20%, so 30,000, are addicted to heroin. Now, back then in 1971, scientists thought, from all the study and from everything that was going on in America and the pandemic of heroin addiction in America, they thought that addiction to heroin was irreversible, that it only led to death, eventual overdose or death through other causes. What they found with American troops in Vietnam is as soon as they removed themselves from Vietnam and went back to the US, 9 out of 10 overnight stopped that addiction. 9 out of 10 troops, 90% stop the addiction overnight. That's better than any rehab facility, any kind of the priory, whatever you kind of can throw at them. It's all about your location. All about location. And what does the location mean? It means you've got that queue, you've got access to heroin. You know friends that are also addicted to heroin or have tried heroin, so it's normalized. And then you're in a situation that you're obviously in war. It's a stressful situation and you need some kind of release. removing them from that situation and putting them back in the US, back at home, 9 out of 10 stopped heroin overnight. So we can learn that, and we can know that that is all about environment and all about kind of the habits that you formed around that, the cues, the instincts, etc. And we can use that for weight loss and for obesity. And that is the craziest pandemic that we have in the world right now, obesity, especially in the Western world and especially in places like America. So what can we do about that? All your eating habits, you've taken from your parents. It's not genetic. You've taken from your parents what they've served to you as a child. By the time you're 5, 6 years old, most of your thinking is hardwired. Most of your habits are hardwired. So your portion size, what foods you enjoy, everything, you know that from being 5, 6 years old, and you take that for most of the rest of your life. It's your job to break those habits. There's no point in being 30, 35, 40 years old and say, oh, do you know what, I've always been fat. It's such a bullshit excuse. You cannot think like that. So when I'm talking like this, it's and seeing Southwest Airlines give that extra seat, and when you kind of look under the bonnet, you can see in the media, and it's all over TikTok and stuff like that, you can see that, but then when you kind of read the small print, actually, they prefer it if you purchase both seats, and then, you know, if you don't have the money, then they'll try to find and reallocate a seat for you so you've got the other seat. So it's media that kind of patching something through to us to kind of create a reaction, and that's obviously how the media. So whatever you're reading in the media, kind of look under the bonnet and see what's actually going on. But the principle still stands, and I've been on these American flights, domestic flights, where people are massive and they just don't fit into the seats. You've got to break those habits, and to break those habits, you need to kind of say, okay, reset. Got to start small, right? What am I doing right now? So list every single thing you have in your diet, every single thing you eat, your sleep, how many hours sleep, what time you went to bed, what time you woke up, how you feel, what you do when you first wake up, all your habits through the day. Write them all down. What you eat, the portion size, you're gonna need to get scales. What do I think is a genuine portion size for rice might be completely different for somebody else. When you look at the portion size on a cereal box, for one person, that might be 30 grams. For another person, it might be 250 grams. So write down the portion size, what you actually, and calculate the calories, and calculate the macronutrient. Everything is available for you online. You can find these things so easily now. And then put a red or put a cross against everything that you think is wrong, everything that you're doing wrong, put a cross in. And if something's positive, it's having a positive long-term effect for you, which means that in the future you are doing everything in that habit to become the person that you want to be, put a plus. And if something's neutral, just put an equals, yeah? And then what you'll see is all those habits you've got written down for the day, including everything you eat and everything you put into your body and how you treat your body, you'll be able to tell immediately. You'll be able to tell just by seeing it written down in black and white, what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong? It's super important that you break out of these habits, and the first thing is identifying the problem. Once you've identified the problem, then you can replace the bad things that you're eating with good things. It's really simple. And it's really simple to say that. It's really simple to see it written down, to do it and to do it repeatedly over a month, over 2 months, and then to change the habit, you've got to get to a point where you're actually seeing the reward. You're actually seeing the benefit. As soon as you start to see the benefit, your discipline then kicks in, and that habit is injected into your lifestyle, and you're not going to want to turn back. You've got to get to that point. Otherwise, you're literally a prisoner. So when I say being fat is a choice, it is a choice. It's up to you. And it doesn't matter where you've come from, what your starting point is right now. You have the power to change that. And it's all up to you. If you say that it's not a choice, and I was just born this way, or I've always been this way, it's completely out of your control, and you're never going to be able to change it. Take control and make the right decisions, implement the right habits, and get the absolute most out of your life. So important.